Lyra floated above the city streets of Kalian, her pale lavender skin glowing faintly in the twilight. She moved with careful grace, as all Xiphorians did, but tonight she felt a thrill she could not contain. Humans fascinated her. Their strange, strong bodies, their fearless movements, their remarkable ability to endure pain and injury. Lyra had heard stories, but seeing them in action was another matter entirely. She had saved up her allowance for weeks just to attend the medical demonstration in the human sector. Every thought in her mind buzzed with anticipation. The city below pulsed with activity. Humans bustled across wide boulevards, their movements confident and unhurried. Some carried packages, some jogged, and others simply laughed as they moved from place to place. Unlike the Xiphorians, who often hesitated at any sudden obstacle, humans seemed to flow around problems with ease. Lyra wondered how their bones could withstand such motion without breaking. She had read the reports. She knew humans were resilient, but she had never imagined it was so visible. When she reached the demonstration center, she paused at the threshold. The building was glass and metal, a human design that looked oddly warm despite its stark appearance. Inside, the smell of antiseptic mingled with the faint tang of ozone. The room was large and open, with chairs arranged around a central platform where Dr. Kale, a human of average height but striking presence, stood waiting. His hair was dark and tousled, his hands steady and capable-looking. Around him, other humans moved with purpose, setting up equipment and explaining procedures. Lyra took a seat near the front, her antennae twitching with excitement. She listened as Dr. Kale began to speak. "Today, you will see something most of you have never witnessed," he said, his voice calm and assured. "We will demonstrate the human ability to recover from injuries in ways that might seem impossible to other species. I ask that you watch carefully and observe, but remember, safety first." A human volunteer, a tall man named Jaren, stood on the platform and performed a series of stretches and exercises. He moved fluidly, flexing his joints, bending his fingers backward and rotating his shoulders in ways that made Lyra gasp silently. She had never seen anything like it. Even the slightest strain on a Xiphorian limb could cause permanent damage, but this human seemed unharmed. Then Dr. Kale announced the demonstration that would change everything for Lyra. "Now, we will show you a controlled injury. Jaren will demonstrate what happens when a human sustains a fracture and how we can correct it safely." Could a human truly endure the pain without flinching? Could they restore themselves completely? Jaren stepped forward. "Don't worry," he said with a reassuring smile. "This is perfectly safe." The room was silent for a moment, and she could almost hear her own heartbeat. Then, without hesitation, Jaren's hands moved. He aligned the bones with precision, each snap echoing softly in the room. Lyra felt a rush of disbelief. The bones moved back into place as if by magic, yet there was no pain on his face, no hesitation. She blinked rapidly, unable to look away. Her mind struggled to process what she was seeing. Her species had no way to do this. If a Xiphorian broke a bone even slightly, it meant weeks of healing and pain, sometimes permanent disability. But this human, he had done it himself, calmly, confidently, with no aid but his own knowledge and skill. Her antennae trembled, her vision blurred. She felt an overwhelming wave of admiration and shock. The room seemed to tilt around her. She could hear murmurs, the soft clicks of other aliens' reactions, but none of it registered clearly. Lyra tried to focus, tried to understand, but the sensation in her chest grew too heavy. Her limbs felt weak, her knees buckled slightly, and then darkness took her. She fainted. When she woke, she was lying on a soft cot in a quiet room, her senses returning slowly. The first thing she noticed was the gentle hum of the ventilation and the faint glow of calming lights overhead. A human nurse knelt beside her, a warm smile on her face. "You gave us quite a scare," the nurse said softly. "You fainted during the demonstration." "It's normal. Many Xiphorians have that reaction at first." Kale was there, observing her with curiosity and concern. "Welcome back," he said gently. "You saw something extraordinary, didn't you?" Dr. Kale knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "It's okay to be shocked," he said. "Humans are different in many ways, not always stronger, but often more adaptable. We've evolved to face extreme challenges, to survive when others might fail. What you saw today is just one example." She had studied human biology in her school, had read countless reports, and had even observed humans in controlled settings before. But nothing had prepared her for the reality of their resilience, the courage to face pain directly, and the ingenuity to fix themselves. Over the next hour, Dr. Kale and the nurse explained the process in more detail. They described how humans combined instinct, learned knowledge, and careful precision to manage injuries. They emphasized the importance of mental strength as much as physical ability. Humans didn't just endure, they observed, calculated, and acted decisively. Lyra listened intently, absorbing every word. Her initial shock gradually transformed into fascination. She asked questions about the limits of human endurance, about how often they could recover from injuries, and how they trained themselves to remain calm under pressure. Each answer deepened her respect. Humans were not invincible, but their intelligence, courage, and adaptability made them appear almost magical to other species. By the time the demonstration ended, Lyra felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had seen something profound, a species that could endure, adapt, and thrive in ways Xiphorians could barely imagine. She felt a spark of inspiration. Perhaps there was something she could learn from humans, not just their methods, but their mindset, their way of facing challenges without fear. As she left the medical center, the city lights reflected in her wide eyes. She could still feel the faint echoes of shock in her chest, the thrill of witnessing human courage firsthand. Every step she took felt heavier, as if her mind was still processing the marvel she had seen. She passed humans moving confidently through the streets, lifting heavy crates, tending to their own injuries, helping one another with calm efficiency. She noticed a child stumble, catch themselves, and continue walking without complaint. Each moment reinforced what she had learned. Humans were extraordinary not because they were fearless, but because they were smart, adaptable, and unafraid to act when it mattered most. Lyra's thoughts drifted back to the moment Jaren had snapped his bones back into place. That image would stay with her forever, a symbol of human ingenuity and courage. She realized she wanted to understand it fully, to study it, to experience it in her own way, safely, of course. Her heart raced with possibilities. What if she could combine her alien knowledge with human methods? What if she could develop new techniques for her people, inspired by what she had seen? The idea filled her with both excitement and determination. As she floated back to her home pod, Lyra's mind was alive with plans and questions. She would not forget this night. Humans had shown her something profound. Resilience was not just about strength or endurance. It was about understanding, courage, and the ability to act decisively when needed. For the first time, Lyra felt a deep connection to another species, not through friendship or diplomacy, but through awe and admiration. Humans were more than fascinating, they were inspiring, and she was determined to learn from them, to grow, and perhaps one day to share what she had learned with her own people. Lyra drifted to sleep that night with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. The image of the human snapping his own bones back into place burned bright in her mind, a constant reminder of what humans could do and what she could aspire to understand. She dreamed of training, of observation, of discovery, and of bridging the gap between Xiphorians and humans, one careful step at a time. Lyra woke the next morning feeling a strange energy in her body. Her mind was buzzing with questions, and her heart still raced when she thought about what she had witnessed the night before. Humans were unlike anything she had ever known. Their ability to endure, recover, and act decisively fascinated her. She remembered how Jaren had snapped his own bones back into place, calm and confident, and how that single act had made her faint from shock. Determined not to feel powerless again, Lyra decided to learn more. She floated out of her small pod and made her way to the human medical center once more. The streets of Kalian were alive with early morning activity. Humans walked with purpose, carrying heavy objects, pushing carts, and even tending to small injuries without panic. Lyra observed quietly, her eyes wide, noting every detail. Humans were not reckless, but their confidence made them appear unstoppable. Even a stumble or a minor accident seemed to pose no real threat. They adjusted, recovered, and continued moving forward. When she arrived at the medical center, she was greeted by the same nurse who had helped her the previous evening. "Good morning, Lyra," the nurse said warmly. "You seem eager today. You'll see humans in real situations. Are you ready for that?" "I am ready." Lyra gasped. That level of control, awareness, and adaptability was unimaginable to a Xiphorian. A small group of humans approached her, smiling as they noticed her curiosity. "You're the alien from last night, right?" one said. "I'm Myra. We saw you faint." "I want to learn." Humans were practicing techniques for handling injuries, navigating obstacles, and lifting heavy objects safely. One man tripped on a small obstacle, his leg twisting at an unnatural angle. Lyra instinctively flinched. But instead of panicking, the man took a deep breath, carefully repositioned his leg, and continued walking. He didn't scream or call for help. He simply assessed, adjusted, and acted. Lyra's jaw dropped. "That's incredible," she whispered. Myra smiled. "Humans learn to do this from a young age. We experience falls, injuries, accidents, and we learn to correct them ourselves. It's not just about our bones, it's about our mind. We stay calm, think, and act." Her species had no concept of this. Even minor injuries caused panic and dependence on others. To see a species capable of both physical and mental control was inspiring. Over the next several hours, Lyra observed humans performing increasingly complex tasks. They lifted heavy weights, moved injured volunteers, and navigated obstacle courses. Sometimes minor injuries occurred, bruises, sprains, or small fractures, but the humans handled each with precision and confidence. Lyra noticed that they often communicated quietly, guiding one another through adjustments and corrections. There was no chaos, no fear, only focus and determination. Lyra felt a burning curiosity. Could she, a fragile Xiphorian, learn even a fraction of this skill? She asked Myra, "Can I try?" Myra demonstrated a few simple exercises designed to help Lyra understand alignment and control without risking injury. Lyra mimicked the movements carefully, her antennae twitching with concentration. At first, her body resisted. Her bones felt fragile and her movements were hesitant, but Myra encouraged her, guiding her hands and posture. Slowly, Lyra began to feel a small sense of control. She could sense her limbs moving deliberately, her muscles coordinating with thought. It was unlike anything she had experienced. Hours passed. Lyra practiced, stumbled, corrected herself, and practiced again. She was exhausted but exhilarated. Her mind was racing with possibilities. Humans were not invincible, but their ability to control themselves, to endure and adapt, was remarkable. She wanted to learn everything they could teach her. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Myra sat with Lyra on a soft mat, their legs stretched out in front of them. "You've done well today," Myra said. "You have a natural curiosity, and that's important, but remember, this isn't just about physical skill. It's about understanding yourself, your limits, and how to act intelligently when faced with challenges. Humans survive not because we are invincible, but because we think, we act carefully, and we refuse to give up." She wanted to embody those qualities, not just as an observer, but as someone who could act with purpose herself. Over the next few days, Lyra continued her training, observing humans in action, practicing simple movements, and asking endless questions. She watched how they communicated silently, how they coordinated actions, and how they adjusted instantly to unexpected problems. Each observation gave her a new understanding of human ingenuity. One afternoon, a minor accident occurred. A human trainee twisted his ankle on an uneven surface. Lyra froze, expecting panic or cries for help. Instead, the human calmly assessed his position, flexed his ankle carefully, and shifted his weight to compensate. He hobbled to a nearby support beam, then straightened and continued walking. Lyra's jaw dropped. The human's control and calmness were mesmerizing. That's incredible," Lyra whispered to Myra. "How can they do that? How do they stay so calm?" Humans aren't fearless. They are deliberate, calculated, and courageous. That combination makes them seem almost unstoppable. She wanted to understand how to combine her knowledge of her own fragile body with human methods of resilience. As evening fell, Lyra sat alone on the observation deck, watching humans train in the fading light. She noticed small acts of courage. A human catching another from a fall, adjusting an injury without flinching, helping a younger trainee navigate an obstacle. Each act was simple, yet it carried weight. Humans did not perform grand gestures. They performed many small, deliberate actions that together made them extraordinary. Lyra felt a deep sense of inspiration. She realized that humans were not miraculous because of some innate invincibility. They were miraculous because they combined thought, courage, and action in ways other species rarely did. She wanted to learn it all to see how far she could push herself, and to perhaps share what she learned with her own people someday. As the night deepened, Lyra returned to her pod, exhausted but exhilarated. Her mind replayed the day's lessons, the calm determination of humans, their ability to correct mistakes, their courage under pressure. She realized that the fainting incident from the night before had been a turning point. It was not just shock, it was a wake-up call. She had glimpsed something powerful, something that transcended physical ability, the human spirit. She lay down, thinking about tomorrow. She would continue observing, continue learning, and continue practicing. Each day brought new insights, new challenges, and new opportunities to understand humans more deeply. Lyra felt a thrill of anticipation. For the first time in her life, she felt not just curiosity, but purpose. Humans had shown her that resilience was not simply a matter of bone or muscle. It was a matter of mind, courage, and ingenuity. And she intended to learn it, one careful step at a time. Lyra drifted into sleep with the image of Jaren's calm, confident movements etched in her mind. She dreamed of human strength, human intelligence, and human courage, all qualities she wished to understand and one day emulate. The fainting that had once embarrassed her now seemed like a badge of honor. She had glimpsed something extraordinary, and her journey had only just begun. The morning air was crisp, carrying a faint metallic tang from the city's energy grid. Lyra moved carefully along the streets of Kalian, her antennae twitching at every sound. Today felt different. She could feel it in her chest, a strange mix of anticipation and unease. The humans had mentioned that real situations could be unpredictable, and Lyra had a sense that she would witness something remarkable today, something that could test everything she had learned. She arrived at the human training sector and noticed unusual activity. Humans were gathering in small groups, speaking urgently but calmly. Their eyes were alert, their movements quick yet deliberate. Lyra's curiosity sharpened. Something had happened, she realized, and she was about to see humans in action outside controlled demonstrations. Myra approached her, her expression serious. "Lyra, today you'll see humans respond to real challenges. There's been a minor seismic shift in the city's lower districts. Buildings are unstable and there are reports of injuries. We need to move carefully. Stay close to me, follow instructions, and observe." The lower districts were a mix of residential and commercial areas, with buildings swaying slightly from the tremors. Lyra's eyes widened as she saw the first signs of damage: cracked walls, toppled containers, and small fires being extinguished by humans in real time. A young human man stumbled, twisting his ankle as he avoided a falling beam. Lyra's instinct was to gasp, but she caught herself, remembering Myra's lessons. She watched intently. The man took a deep breath, assessed his ankle, and shifted his weight carefully. He grabbed a nearby support pole, adjusted his footing, and continued toward the injured with no cry of pain. Lyra could hardly believe what she was seeing. Myra placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "Notice how he stays calm," she said quietly. "Humans survive because we think, adjust, and act. Fear slows you down, calm speeds you up." Even when minor injuries occurred, humans corrected them quickly, often without anyone else noticing. As they moved deeper into the affected district, Lyra's heart pounded. A building groaned, a section of wall cracking dangerously. Humans nearby coordinated immediately. Some guided residents out, while others reinforced weak points with beams and supports. Lyra noticed one man, an older human with graying hair, carefully adjusting a collapsed floor panel so that people could cross safely. His hands moved confidently, his eyes scanning for hazards. When a small fracture in his wrist appeared from the strain, he paused, flexed his fingers deliberately, and continued. Lyra's eyes widened. Even in the middle of danger, humans remained focused, their control over themselves astounding. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the street. Part of a building's support beam gave way, sending debris toward a group of civilians. Lyra froze for a fraction of a second, but Myra's firm grip on her arm pulled her into motion. Humans leapt, ran, and shifted with uncanny speed. One of them caught a child falling from a balcony, adjusting their own posture to absorb the child's weight safely. Another human adjusted a broken railing mid-fall to prevent a second collapse. Every action was precise, coordinated, and fearless. Lyra's mind reeled. Her species would never have been able to act so quickly or with such composure. She had read about human adaptability, but seeing it in real time in a life-threatening situation was entirely different. Her admiration grew into awe and her curiosity deepened. Myra guided Lyra to a safer vantage point where they could observe without being in immediate danger. "Watch closely," Myra said. "Notice how humans don't just rely on strength. They observe, calculate, and adapt. That combination, that's what keeps us alive." She wanted to step forward to help, but she knew her fragile body could not yet handle real hazards. She had to watch, learn, and internalize every action. Hours passed, and the humans continued their coordinated efforts. Lyra observed minor fractures, sprains, and bruises being corrected in real time. Sometimes a human would flex a joint or snap a small bone back into alignment, much like Jaren had done in the demonstration. The key difference now was the stakes. These were not controlled exercises. Mistakes could have consequences, yet the humans acted with calm precision, turning potential disaster into manageable situations. Lyra noticed something remarkable. Even under stress, humans communicated silently. A glance, a gesture, or a subtle shift in posture conveyed instructions and warnings. They moved as a single organism, each aware of the other's actions, adjusting instinctively. Lyra had never seen such coordinated adaptability. A sudden tremor shook the street violently. Dust filled the air, and a larger section of a building began to collapse. Panic surged in Lyra's chest, but she forced herself to remember Myra's words. Calm observation, careful assessment, deliberate action. She watched as humans acted immediately. Some stabilized walls with supports, others guided civilians to safety, and a few lifted heavy debris blocking escape routes. A man with a fractured arm, careful to align his bones, continued to assist others without hesitation. Lyra gasped quietly, the combination of courage and intelligence leaving her stunned. Myra's voice broke through her awe. Humans survive because we see possibilities where others see danger. We act because we trust our judgment, even when fear is present. Remember that, Lyra. Courage without calculation is reckless. Calculation without action is useless. Humans combine both. Humans were extraordinary not just because of their bones or muscles, but because of their mind, judgment, and courage in tandem. As the tremors subsided and the building stabilized, Lyra noticed humans checking each other and the civilians. Minor injuries were treated swiftly, some fractures adjusted instinctively, and support systems reinforced to prevent further collapse. She saw faces calm, focused, and yet compassionate. Humans were not reckless or indifferent. They were precise, adaptable, and caring. Lyra realized she had absorbed more today than in weeks of observation. The fainting incident of the previous evening seemed trivial now. She had seen the essence of human ingenuity, the combination of observation, intelligence, courage, and adaptability. It was not magic, it was human thought applied under pressure. As the chaos settled, Lyra followed Myra through the quieted streets, her eyes wide with awe. How can they do all of that?" she asked softly. Myra smiled. "It's not just the body, Lyra. Humans train their mind as much as their body. We learn to endure, to adapt, to trust ourselves. Every action you saw was a choice, calculated in the moment. That's what makes humans resilient." For the first time, Lyra felt a spark of determination that went beyond curiosity. She wanted to practice, to train, to internalize this mindset. Humans had shown her that she could face challenges with a combination of intelligence, courage, and adaptability, even if her fragile body required careful attention. As night fell over Kalian, Lyra returned to her pod exhausted but exhilarated. Her antennae twitched with every memory of the day's events. She remembered the humans who had lifted heavy debris, adjusted fractures instinctively, and acted decisively in the face of danger. She remembered the quiet communication, the calm observation, and the deliberate courage. Every moment had left an imprint on her mind. Lyra lay down, staring at the ceiling of her pod. She realized that today had changed her. She no longer merely admired humans, she understood them in a way she could not have imagined before. Their resilience, intelligence, and courage were not just traits, they were a philosophy, a way of living, and she wanted to learn it. She thought of the fractures she had witnessed, the controlled snaps of bones into place, and the calm determination of the humans who risked injury yet continued to act. That image would stay with her forever. It was a symbol not just of strength, but of human ingenuity and the ability to rise above limitations through thought and courage. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling a deep sense of purpose. Tomorrow she would continue her training and observation. She wanted to learn everything humans could teach her, not just about physical resilience, but about courage, adaptability, and intelligence under pressure. For the first time, Lyra felt ready, not just to observe, but to internalize, to grow, and to someday emulate what she had seen. Humans had shown her that resilience was not merely survival, it was thoughtful action, courage in adversity, and the ability to inspire others through example. And she intended to learn it, one careful step at a time. The next morning, Lyra woke with a sense of determination she had never felt before. The city was quiet, the streets bathed in soft sunlight, but her mind was already racing. Today was not just about observing humans. Today she would try to act, to apply what she had learned. Myra had agreed to let her practice in a controlled but realistic environment, and Lyra's excitement mixed with nervousness. Her antennae twitched as she prepared herself, focusing on breathing and mental clarity, the lessons humans had emphasized so many times. Myra met her at the edge of a small training sector, a section of the city where humans regularly practiced emergency response and minor physical challenges. "Are you ready?" Myra asked. Lyra nodded. "I think so," she said, her voice steady. "I want to try." Safety always comes before everything else. A mechanical device simulated a fracture in one of her limbs, a gentle vibration that mimicked the sensation of a minor injury. Her instinct was to panic, but she remembered Myra's words. She took a deep breath, observed the injury, and carefully adjusted her posture and muscles. The movement was subtle but correct. Lyra's heart raced, but she felt a thrill of accomplishment. "Very good," Myra said. "Now let's try something more complex." But she recalled how humans adjusted instinctively in the real quake scenario. She focused, felt her body align with her mind, and moved carefully. Each step was deliberate, each adjustment thoughtful. Slowly, Lyra began to feel the rhythm of human-inspired resilience. After completing the course several times, Lyra felt her confidence growing. She had begun to understand that human ingenuity was not magic. It was practice, observation, and thoughtful action. Even when simulated injuries occurred, she learned to stay calm, analyze the situation, and act decisively. Myra watched her progress with quiet approval. "You're doing well," she said. "Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about understanding limits and acting intelligently within them. Humans don't need to be perfect. They need to be aware and adaptable." As the day progressed, Myra introduced a more advanced scenario. A simulated building collapse had been set up in the training sector, with soft debris, obstacles, and volunteers acting as injured individuals. Lyra's task was to navigate the environment safely, assist others, and correct minor simulated injuries where possible. Her body was fragile, but her mind was sharp. The moment she stepped into the simulated zone, she felt a rush of adrenaline. Dust floated in the air, soft debris shifted under her feet, and the faint sounds of simulated distress echoed around her. She froze for a moment, but then she remembered the humans in the real quake scenario. Calm observation, deliberate action, and careful adaptation. She took a deep breath and moved forward. The first volunteer she encountered was lying beneath a lightweight beam, simulating a minor fracture in the arm. Lyra approached carefully, assessed the position, and guided the volunteer to a safer spot. She adjusted the limb with delicate precision, imagining how humans would realign a bone. It was subtle, careful work, but effective. Myra nodded from nearby, clearly impressed. Lyra moved deeper into the zone. She encountered a simulated obstacle, a small section of debris blocking the path. Her instincts told her to rush to avoid delay, but she remembered the lessons of human adaptability. She analyzed the debris, considered her options, and slowly moved it using leverage and her own body alignment. The obstacle shifted gradually, and she passed safely. Her heart pounded with pride and excitement. Hours passed as Lyra navigated the simulated environment. Each challenge tested her observation, decision-making, and physical coordination. She adjusted her movements based on the feedback she felt through her body, a practice humans had mastered over generations. She began to understand something profound. Resilience was not simply enduring injury, it was thinking, adjusting, and acting with awareness. As the sun began to set, Myra called her over. "Lyra, you've done more today than many humans manage in years. You've applied observation, calm analysis, and deliberate action. How do you feel?" "Not just in my body, but in my mind. I understand now that strength is not just about being unbroken. It's about being smart, adaptable, and courageous." She wanted to practice more, to refine her skills, to understand the limits of her fragile body while applying human-inspired methods. She realized that her fainting experience and the quake observation had been crucial turning points. Now, she was not just an observer. She was a practitioner, applying lessons with intention. Suddenly, a small emergency alarm rang through the training sector. A real situation had occurred in the city outskirts. A minor tremor had caused a partial collapse of a building. Myra's expression grew serious. "Lyra, stay close. This is real. Watch, learn, and assist if you can safely." Calm observation, deliberate action, thoughtful courage. She followed Myra toward the affected area, keeping a safe distance but observing every movement. When they arrived, the scene was chaotic yet controlled. Humans moved swiftly, guiding civilians to safety, stabilizing debris, and checking for injuries. Lyra's eyes widened as she saw the precision and courage in their actions. One human lifted a beam carefully, while another guided a child from the rubble. Minor fractures were adjusted instinctively, and the injured were reassured with calm words and gestures. Lyra remembered the exercises she had practiced that morning. Carefully, she approached a small pile of debris blocking a volunteer's path. She aligned her body, assessed the weight, and gently shifted the debris aside, creating a safe passage. Myra's approving nod gave her courage. She continued, assisting others where she could, staying mindful of her limitations. For the first time, Lyra felt the true power of human-inspired resilience. It was not about invincibility. It was about applying intelligence, courage, and precision under pressure. She had internalized lessons about calm observation, deliberate action, and adaptability. Humans had shown her a new way to face challenges, and she was now practicing it herself. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the city. The crisis was resolved with minimal injuries, and humans began guiding citizens back to safe zones. Lyra felt exhausted but exhilarated. She had acted, applied her training, and contributed in a meaningful way. For the first time, she felt the confidence of understanding human ingenuity. Myra placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lyra, today you've done more than observe. You've acted, adapted, and helped. That's what humans do in real situations. You've shown courage, intelligence, and care, all at once." She realized that their greatest strength was not in their bones or muscles, but in their mind and spirit. She wanted to carry that mindset with her always. As Lyra returned to her pod that night, she reflected on the day's events. She had learned something profound. Humans were not extraordinary because they never got hurt. They were extraordinary because they faced injury and danger with awareness, intelligence, and courage. She had taken her first steps in adopting that mindset, and it felt empowering. Lyra lay in her pod, her mind alive with ideas for further practice. She thought of how she could combine her alien physiology with the lessons she had learned from humans. She imagined guiding other Xiphorians, sharing what she had discovered, and helping her species embrace the same courage and adaptability. For the first time, Lyra felt truly inspired. Humans had shown her a philosophy of resilience, a way of approaching challenges with thought, courage, and action. And she was determined to continue learning, practicing, and growing, carefully, deliberately, and bravely. She drifted to sleep, her mind filled with the faces of humans she had observed, the precision of their movements, and the calm courage that had inspired her. She dreamed not of danger or injury, but of possibilities, understanding, and the power of combining thought with action. For Lyra, the journey was far from over. But tonight, she knew one truth. Human ingenuity was not magic. It was a mindset, a practice, and a courage that could inspire others across species. And she intended to live by that lesson, one deliberate, thoughtful step at a time. The morning sun rose over Kalian, casting golden light across the city streets. Lyra stretched her limbs and felt a steady energy she had never known before. The days of observation, training, and cautious practice had transformed her. She no longer simply admired humans from afar, she understood them. She had begun to internalize their mindset, calm observation, deliberate action, courage under pressure, and intelligent adaptation. Today, she felt ready for her first real test without constant guidance. Myra appeared at the entrance to Lyra's pod. "Today, there's a special exercise," she said, her eyes shining. "It's a simulation, but it's more advanced. You'll need to apply everything you've learned, step by step. Are you ready?" The exercise was designed to test not only observation and adaptability, but also courage, decision-making, and the ability to assist others under pressure. Lyra's heart pounded as she stepped into the zone. Dust floated in the air, faint alarms rang, and distant calls for help echoed around her. For a brief moment, fear surged through her. But she focused, remembering every lesson humans had taught her. Calm observation, deliberate action, thoughtful courage. She inhaled deeply and began moving. The first obstacle appeared quickly, a narrow passage blocked by a light but awkwardly balanced beam. Lyra assessed the situation. She could push it aside carefully, using her body weight to adjust the balance. She remembered the quake simulation and the humans lifting debris precisely without panic. She shifted her stance, leaned slowly, and nudged the beam to the side. It wobbled but stayed in place. Lyra passed safely through. A small thrill of success ran through her body. Ahead, a simulated civilian lay trapped beneath soft debris, their arm at an awkward angle. Lyra knelt carefully, observing the injury and the positioning of the limbs. Her antennae twitched with concentration. Slowly, deliberately, she adjusted the arm, realigning it with care. The civilian signaled relief, and Lyra felt a surge of pride. She had applied human-inspired methods, remaining calm and precise under pressure. Deeper into the simulation, Lyra faced multiple hazards at once. Unstable platforms, shifting debris, and simulated injuries scattered throughout the area. She paused to assess the situation. Her eyes scanned, her mind calculated, and she moved strategically, deciding which obstacle to handle first, which injured volunteer needed immediate attention, and how to maintain her own safety. A sudden vibration caused a minor shift in a platform beneath her feet. Lyra's instincts screamed to step back quickly, but she remembered the humans during the real quake. They didn't panic, they adjusted. She bent her knees, aligned her weight, and shifted gracefully to stabilize herself. The movement felt natural, almost instinctive. Her confidence surged. She reached a cluster of volunteers who were trapped under soft debris. One had a simulated fractured leg, another a twisted arm. Lyra knelt beside them, her antennae flicking with focus. She carefully assessed the fractures, guided their limbs into safe positions, and helped them move to a nearby clear zone. Each action was deliberate and precise, inspired by the humans she had observed in real emergencies. Myra, watching nearby, nodded silently, her approval clear. As Lyra moved through the zone, she realized something profound. Humans were not just extraordinary because of their physical strength. They were extraordinary because they thought, adapted, and acted with courage in every moment. She felt herself embracing that mindset fully. Her fear was present, yes, but it was guided by intelligence and careful decision-making. Courage was not the absence of fear, it was acting thoughtfully despite it. The simulation intensified. A larger section of debris shifted, creating a blocked exit and a potential hazard for volunteers still trapped. Lyra paused. She could attempt to move the debris, but it required precise balance and awareness. She remembered the humans who had lifted heavy objects during the real quake, carefully distributing weight, adjusting their posture, and acting without hesitation. Lyra aligned her body, assessed the center of gravity, and slowly shifted the debris. It moved gradually, clearing the path without collapse. A surge of exhilaration coursed through her. Nearby, a simulated volunteer screamed in alarm. Lyra turned immediately, her mind scanning the situation. The injury involved a minor fracture and the volunteer was panicking. Lyra knelt beside them, keeping her movements calm and deliberate. She guided the limb into alignment, spoke softly, and reassured the volunteer. Slowly, their panic subsided. Lyra realized that humans did not just act physically, they also inspired calm, giving strength through their presence and understanding. Hours passed, and Lyra continued moving through the simulation. Each challenge tested her observation, intelligence, and courage. She handled fractures, guided volunteers, navigated obstacles, and maintained her own safety. Her body was fragile, yes, but her mind had become resilient. She was thinking like a human, observing, calculating, and acting decisively. At the final section of the simulation, a larger hazard awaited, a simulated collapsed platform with multiple volunteers trapped beneath it. Lyra took a deep breath and scanned the situation. She could see the fractures, the unstable debris, and the pathways she would need to take. Calm observation, deliberate action, thoughtful courage. She moved forward methodically, lifting and shifting debris with careful alignment, guiding volunteers to safety one by one. Her movements were precise, efficient, and careful. When the last volunteer was safely clear, Lyra paused and looked around. The zone was stable. All injured volunteers had been assisted. Myra approached, smiling broadly. "Lyra," she said, "you've done it. You applied observation, intelligence, courage, and action perfectly. You've completed the most advanced exercise we have. You've demonstrated what humans do naturally, and you've internalized it." She had not just survived a simulation. She had acted with the mindset of humans, calm, deliberate, courageous, and intelligent. She realized that humans' greatest strength was not in their bones or muscles, it was in their mind and their way of facing challenges thoughtfully and bravely. Myra continued, her voice gentle but firm. "Humans inspire not just through actions, but through example. We show others what is possible when thought, courage, and adaptability are combined. Today, you've embraced that philosophy. You've taken your first true steps in understanding human ingenuity." She remembered observing humans during the quake simulation, their calm courage and precise movements. She remembered the practice exercises, the careful training, and now, her first full demonstration of human-inspired resilience. She realized something important. Resilience and courage were not about invincibility. They were about awareness, intelligence, and thoughtful action in the face of challenges. Humans had taught her that even a fragile body could perform extraordinary feats when guided by observation, calculation, and bravery. That evening, as the sun set over Kalian, Lyra returned to her pod, exhausted but exhilarated. Her antennae twitched with satisfaction, her mind alive with reflection. She thought of the humans she had watched, the courage she had observed, and the lessons she had applied. She realized that her journey was not over, but she had reached a milestone. She had internalized the philosophy of human ingenuity, and she had acted on it successfully. Lyra lay down, thinking about the future. She imagined teaching other Xiphorians, sharing what she had learned about calm observation, deliberate action, and courage guided by intelligence. She imagined a new way of thinking for her species, inspired by humans, not copying them but learning from their philosophy of resilience. She remembered Jaren, Myra, and all the humans who had inspired her. She realized that humans were extraordinary because they faced challenges with thought, courage, and precision. Lyra had seen it, practiced it, and now felt a part of it. The fainting incident that had once overwhelmed her was no longer a symbol of weakness. It was the start of her journey toward understanding and embodying human resilience. For the first time, Lyra felt fully capable of facing challenges. Her mind and body were aligned with the lessons she had learned. She had embraced the human approach: observe carefully, think deliberately, act bravely, and inspire others through example. As she drifted into sleep, Lyra smiled. She dreamed of the humans she had observed, of the lessons she had learned, and of the possibilities ahead. She knew her journey had only just begun, but she also knew that she now carried the essence of human ingenuity within her. She had learned that true strength was not invincibility. It was courage under pressure, intelligence in action, and the ability to inspire through deliberate, thoughtful deeds. Humans had shown her what was possible, and Lyra was ready to carry that lesson forward, one careful, brave step at a time.